me. My name is Miss Lizzie. I don't ever smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some ditzies. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to rhyme. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys, Miss Liz in the house, and I have a returning guest, and you know how Miss Liz loves returning guests because I've already broke the ice with these people. So I have the incredible James Bow, and we're going to talk about his book that is being repurposed, and it was launched in 2019. So we're going to talk about that. It's called The Night Girl. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about some Doctor Who, and we're going to talk about his tea as well. The tea that we are serving tonight is the Underground City, otherwise known as the Pack Network, a love letter to my hometown and exploring to see where the story takes you. That's where the tea we're serving tonight. So we're going to take you on a little journey. But before we get started, you guys know how Miss Liz rolls. Go over to all those platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, all those good platforms, and check out the podcast platforms as well, the Spotify, Podbean, Listen Notes, and check over on babyboomers.org because they are partnered up with Miss Liz, and you can hear all of the 600 interviews over there on that platform. So I want to thank everybody for that. But before we get started, we're going to do the disclaimer, and then we've got a beautiful intro, and then we're going to get James in here, and we're going to spill some tea with all of you guys tonight. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicating to sharing real-life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I'm Miss Liz is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek professional or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com or visit my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you're ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Well, welcome back to Tea Time with Miss Liz, where stories continue, worlds expand, and returning guests remind us the imagination never stands still. Tonight, I'm honored to welcome back a storyteller who knows how to take us beyond the ordinary and into world shaped by curiosity, creativity, and wonder. Please join me in welcoming back James Bow, award-winning author of science fiction and fantasy for both young readers and adults. James' love for storytelling began early, inspired by the classics like Doctor Who and the work of the author like J.R.R. Tolkien. I think he's going to tell me how to say that again. That passion grew into a career that has captured readers' imagination, earning him the Prix Aurora Award for his novel Icarus Down. Beyond writing, James worked to protect real-world landscapes as a communication officer for Charitable Land Trust, reminding us that storytelling isn't just about imagined worlds, but also about preserving the ones we live in. From trains and streetcars to underground cities and hidden connections, his story reflects a deep love for place, exploration, and the journey itself. His tea speaks truly. Toronto, equity, awareness. So grab your cup and lean in. Tonight's tea time is about imagination, discovery, and where stories can take us when we allow ourselves to explore. Let me get James in here and let's figure out some of these words.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, you did pretty well. I mean, everybody gets my last name wrong. It's Bow rather than Bow, but you danced to the middle there, which was good.
Bow and bow.
But it's Bow. And forget what the other one. It's the Prix Aurora Award. It's the Prix is like the French for prize, and it's the Canadian Science Fiction Award. So we're a bilingual country. So
I was going to say it in French, and I was just like, I don't know if it's French or not.
Yeah, it's French and English. I won it for Icarus Down. Icarus is the boy who flew too close to the sun, and that one. In 2016, it won Best YA Science Fiction, and it put me on a press release alongside Robert Sawyer and Margaret Atwood. So, I mean, that's a bucket list item right there. So I'm really pleased with that. But yeah, other than that, I think you got everything.
Oh, and I struggled with the Tolkien.
Oh, yeah, J.R.R. Tolkien, I think.
Tolkien.
Yeah.
See, and that's why I get my guests to help me out, because sometimes I just can't pronounce anything, right?
Yeah, the guy. Well, I mean, as a reader, there are sometimes words that enter your head that you never you have it a certain way, and then when somebody else who's actually knows the word says it, you're like going, huh? Like
I would have never said it that way, right?
I mean, the one that got me recently was hegemony. HEGEMONY. It's like a group or place, an alliance. And I always thought it was like hegemony.
Oh,
Hegemony. And with Project Hail Mary on there, everybody's talking about Epsilon Eridani. And I was like, I've always thought it was Epsilon Eridani, but I see it written down, having it read a lot of science fiction, never heard it spoken. So there you go.
well, and it's the way we were taught how to read letters too, right? And
Yeah.
like for me, I don't sound letters, so some people will give me a name and I won't pronounce the hard K or the hard C, right? I'll pronounce as I see the letter. So I'm just like, how did you get that as a K when that's a C?
Yeah, for sure.
So, James, could you share a little bit about yourself? You're a returning guest, but for the people who haven't seen your last tea time with me, share a little bit on who you were as a little guy and who you are now.
Well, my name is James Bow. I'm a writer, first and foremost. And I've always had a love of writing and reading and storytelling. And I think it goes right back to my mother, who was a librarian. My father was also a librarian. They had lots of books in the house, and she made sure to read to me at bedtime, and not just the simple stuff. She would read to me like 50s science fiction novels, like there was Clifford Seamack and the book They Walked Like Men, and she read to me The Lord of the Rings, all 3 volumes of J.R. Tolkien's work, and The Hobbit. So they made sure to instill a love of reading in me. And then I went off to a university, tried to learn a serious paying career in urban and regional planning, but it seemed like a natural offshoot in that I liked trains, I liked building cities, so I went into urban planning. Graduated at the end of the 1990s recession and serious government austerity, and so I didn't end up in the profession. I ended up, taking odd jobs as mid assistant stuff or in computer work, database stuff, and through it all, the thing that I always liked about when I was at school or the work I was doing is when I got to be creative, when I got to tell stories and got to make things. And eventually, I mean, I've been writing Doctor Who fan fiction for years beforehand. I decided to try and write my own stuff, and then tried to get that published, and succeeded in 2006 with The Unwritten Girl, a young adult fantasy novel. And and though I've never been a full-time writer, it's that I have sort of committed myself to try to make a living out of writing. So I do things like I write nonfiction books for kids, for educational publisher packagers. That a fiction novel can take years to write, and usually takes 2 years between the signing of the book of the contract and the sending it out to the bookshelves. Whereas education publishers are like, this is the subject, you have this amount of words to work with, we need it in a month, go.
Go.
Yeah. I pulled a few all-nighters doing that, but it's still, I mean, it's like cramming for a college exam, except you have to write for an eighth grade audience, so you have to watch your language. But it's still a lot of fun. And I moved on to working in communications, producing press releases, creating publications, reaching out to donors, that sort of thing. I was working at the Rare Charitable Research Reserve as their communications officer, but I've moved off into freelance work right now. And but I'm still making myself available as a writer. But even though my first love is still fiction.
Well, we got some questions that are coming into the studio, so I want to get those out there to you. The first one I'm going to pull up is, what inspired you to start writing science fiction?
Well, I think I started young because my mother read to me science fiction. And we watched Doctor Who. I've thanks to fan historians, I've been able to trace back to what was the exact moment I started watching Doctor Who. It was 1978 on TV Ontario, because it was this particular episode, and that's when it aired. So I've been, a fan of the show, and has been producing new episodes we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of me watching the show. The show has just passed its 60th anniversary, so there you go. So I've always had that love of an interest in science fiction. Watched Star Trek in syndication when I was young, and Star Trek: The Next Generation came out. So that's always been there. And with my parents instilling a love of books, being librarians themselves, that's always stayed with me. The other thing, I think, fan fiction itself helped. My mother always wanted to write, so I wanted to write as well. But a good way to do that, I really recommend, is if you're new to writing and you like watching a particular show, write a fan fiction story set in the universe of that show. Doctor Who is very easy because although they try to dress it up in science fiction vocabulary, ultimately it comes down to, this is a wizard with a magical cabinet that can take him anywhere in the universe, and even any genre. He's a portable hero who gets plunked down into any sort of situation that you can create, and he interacts with it. And so that's very easy to write stories with, and test your stories. You practice your skills that way. And one thing that fan fiction has that, say, writing in your journal does not, is an audience. There are other fans there that like to read fan fiction, especially if you go on forums like Archive of Our Own. They will read your stories, and they will by and large be kind. They will give you constructive criticism, or they will say that they enjoyed it, and that is all the encouragement you need to keep writing. And if you want to write, the simplest advice that anybody can give is write and keep writing, and fan fiction really helps with that.
Well, the next question I'm going to pull up for you is, what is your creative process when starting a new story?
Well, it does take me a little while. Excuse me. I think a few ideas come to me about wouldn't it be cool if, and I just sort of see some isolated scenes in my head or an isolated character. And I think the important thing that comes with this is you have to ask questions. It's like, why are they there? What do they want? What do they do? What's preventing them from getting what they want? What are they going to do to overcome the obstacles? With the Sunrunners, which we talked about earlier, I think the inciting story idea was I had this image of a crown princess who wanted to be an engineer. And I just sort of say, and I just asked questions and tried to find the most interesting answers. It's like, crown princess of what? And why does she want to be an engineer? What's stopping her from being an engineer? She's on Mercury, and why are they on Mercury? And from that, we built an entire universe around that story, around that one character, and I built the universe around her and found other stories to play with within that universe. The Night Girl started when my wife Erin, also a writer, I was thinking about what my next book should be, and we were in Toronto, which is always under construction, and
Always.
always under construction. And it was 2003. The Lord of the Rings movies had just been out, and she said to me, "What if, here's an idea. What if they dug too greedily and too deep, which is the mines of Moria, and what if they unleashed something?" And I didn't stick with that idea per se, but it did put me in mind of Toronto with goblins and trolls sort of interacting with or trying to live within the human society, and how would they do this? And probably a different inspiration came in the character Perpetua, this young woman who comes to the big city with very little and looking for work, and she finds it as the admin assistant for an employment agency that finds work for goblins and trolls. So you could say her boss is a real troll, but actually he's a goblin, and that's not so bad. So these elements just bounced off each other, and I just said, okay, well, what does she do with this? How do they live like this? And I just continued to explore the universe and try to find the more interesting answers to those questions to put together into a story. It took a while, and I had to, at one point, rewrite the story from the ground up because it wasn't working. And the reason why it wasn't working was I only had goblins and trolls who were trying to hide from the human race because it's a human world and they don't fit in it. But at the same time, they want to live. They have to live. And so Perpetua's boss, T.P. Earthenhouse, has been trying to create an economy for the goblins by hiring them out as art installations, as gargoyles, and using the trolls to be like diggers at these construction sites. But so he wants to change the status quo, but at the same time he's afraid of he's afraid of breaking the status quo, and that's a conflict. And I had to figure out how to defeat that, and that's when I bring in the fairies, who are in the same sort of realm as goblins and trolls, and except they benefit from the status quo. I mean, they are afraid of being seen by the human race, but they are at the top of the economic ladder in terms of these groups. So when Earthhouse tries to make a and tries to get jobs for the goblins, which threatens the status quo, makes it more likely that humans are going to suddenly realize they have all these other goblins, trolls, and fairies in their midst, and they might freak out. So the fairies are, he wants to challenge the status quo, and the fairies very much do not. And so Perpetua pretty quickly finds herself in the middle of that.
But James, it kind of goes with this question that just came in: is how do you build such imaginative worlds?
Well, I guess you just have to explore in your mind, or it sometimes helps if you can find some of the weirder places where you live. In Toronto,
All the hidden gems, right, that are in Toronto.
You can find the hidden gems. If you can find someplace weird, you can maybe make a story out of it. And Toronto has the underground city, which is it's in the Guinness Book of World Records. It's the largest underground shopping concourse between the various skyscrapers in downtown Toronto. Now, I mean, and Toronto being Toronto, they call it the Path Network, not the underground city. They call it, this meaningless term. And that's, unfortunately, that's my city in a nutshell. I mean, Montreal has Les Souterrains, which means the underground. And that's mysterious and that's deep. It's also bigger, but it's in 3 parts. So that's why Toronto has the record and Montreal doesn't. But it's these underground tunnels. It's a literal labyrinth, because each individual skyscraper built it out their own way, and they don't exactly meet in a coherent pattern. You will get lost down there, even when you look at maps. But it gets, during office hours, hundreds of thousands of people walking through there in order to stay out of the snow or to keep cool in summer. And but it stays open after hours, so the place gets very quiet and kind of creepy. So it's very easy to imagine fun
Fairies
things.
and trolls coming and getting you,
Exactly.
Right?
So, yeah, look for the places that are weird, and then if you can explore around you and find those, you can maybe place them in your story.
Well, kind of even like waterfalls and stuff like that, right? Because there's some they go through the waterfall, and then there's another land under that waterfall, and really get creative. I just spent the weekend last weekend in Collingwood. And we did the caves in that, right? But the caves are closed, but we got to see a little bit. And oh my goodness, like I was just like, can you imagine what's living in there? Like the bats, the stories that come from it. There's a lot.
Would make me a bit claustrophobic, actually, but that's another story. They've made use of that.
Well, we have a question here for you about where do I wanted to see it here about your authors. There's so many questions coming in that I want to make sure that I'm getting them out to everybody. Where is it? I seen it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right here. Yeah. Which authors influence your writing style the most? I knew I'd find it.
Oh, well, I mean, I wrote a lot of Doctor Who fan fiction straight through high school and university. So the people who write for Doctor Who obviously have a big part to play. One passed away recently. His name was Chris Boucher, and he wrote, among the stories, The Face of Evil, The Robots of Death, and Image of the Fendal. Titles maybe not his strong suit, but still, he had a diverse set of stories in there, like murder mysteries set on a future luxury liner / mining ship, and the suspects are the robots that are sort of doing the work, and so there's like a version of different styles in there, but that was what made me a fan of Doctor Who, and that's what got me into writing. So I think I have to give a lot of credit to him. And when he passed away, I wrote a sort of a eulogy on it. And author Philip Reeve, who does the Mortal Engines series, sort of gave that a like on Facebook. So I mean, he was feeling it too. So that man has had some influence on a lot of people. Another big one would be Madeleine L'Engle, who wrote A Wrinkle in Time. My mother made sure to have that read to me pretty early on, and that directly got me into writing The Unwritten Girl, because if you've read A Wrinkle in Time, it's the young woman who's 12, a bit of a social outcast, has to go into this strange world in order to save her brother who's been abducted, and she has this new boy who's come to help her, and named Calvin. And I mean, they're 12 and 13, but you still see the chemistry between them, and it's nice to see them working together. There's a sequel called A Wind in the Door, where Meg is now 16 and Calvin is 17, and they have a different but similar fantastical adventure. But you can tell their relationship is deepening. And it kind of scares her a little, because I mean, we're friends, but what's happening here? And that really caught the romantic in me. I wanted to see this go. So what's the next book in their storyline? That would be A Swiftly Tilting Planet, where she is 24, married to Calvin, and expecting their first child. And I'm like, Madeline, you missed a step. So when I wrote The Unwritten Girl and its two sequels, Fathom 5 and The Young City, I wanted to create something similar, where we had these two characters that met pretty young and went off to have adventures, became friends, but then developed slowly a deeper relationship through books 2 and 3 as they got older. I wanted to do that, and that's where I came. That's one of the reasons that got these stories there, and that's what got me into being a novelist. So yeah, Madeline has got to take a very big credit, a lot of credit here. And finally, J.R.R. Tolkien, since Lord of the Rings, especially, or the Peter Jackson movies, but also the book series itself, has an influence on the Night Girl. There is, I even managed to make a joke about it. There is a creature at the end of the book which they refer to as a Balor. That's a very big fire-breathing thing that's going to wreak a lot of havoc. And Perpetua is like demanding, that's like, what is a Balor? I don't know what you're talking about. And this other person says, the D&D people used the term Balor interchangeably with Balrog until the Tolkien estate threatened to sue. All of which is true. And so that makes you realize, like, oh, a Balor is under Toronto. A Balrog is under Toronto.
Well, James, I pulled up your book, The Night Girl. Let's talk about the cover, how you got it, because I see like a demon or a troll, something in the back here, and the girl's kind of looking sideways. Like, is she scared? Is she what's going on here?
I think she's looking pretty suave and determined. And
okay. I see it now.
This cover was designed by Biblioasis. It's a 2-person sort of workshop. I believe it was Alicia. I'm sorry. I apologize if I've mispronounced her name or gotten her name dead wrong. But she put this together, and I quite like it. Initially, the goblin figure in the background wasn't there, and we were like, oh well, this just looks like a standard romance. Could we put something in the back?
Gotta add that creepy guy in there, right?
Yeah. But she did a really good job. She even designed the font. She was also they were also the ones that did the cover for the Sunrunners and the companion anthology Tales from the Silence. And so I used them again when I put out my own sort of freebie book, The Dream King's Daughter. really good to work with, and I'm really quite pleased. There's a story about the previous cover, because this is a reprise. The Night Girl was originally produced in 2019 by Roots Publications out in Portland, Oregon. And it's a small-scale American publisher, and the editor was fantastic to work with, but it just, it's the way it is in this industry. They couldn't quite make it. And so I managed to get the rights back and then talked to Ed, who had produced the Sunrunners, and he agreed to reprint this with a new cover this last year. But the previous cover was, you see the CN Tower, the big tower in Toronto, and Perpetua and a bunch of goblins sort of running across one of the buildings in the city. And that got me threatened with a lawsuit from the CN Tower.
Oh.
Yeah. True story. You can look it up. And we were showing off the cover, and then I happened to get an email from Canada Lands Corporation, which is the Crown Corporation that owns the CN Tower. So it's owned by the federal government, basically, and they own the CN Tower. And they wrote me a cease and desist letter saying the use of the image of the CN Tower is a violation of our trademark, and essentially asking, on the day that this was published, essentially suggesting that I needed to pulp this first print run. I admit I kind of freaked out, but I talked to Erin about this, and she said this is a golden opportunity to get free publicity out of this. And once she calmed me down by saying that she was willing to take the risk here, I went over to the group Science Fiction SF Canada. They have a great message board, and I told my story and asked for advice and sympathy. And Cory Doctorow contacted me and put me in touch with a intellectual property lawyer who was going to work pro bono. And our contention was, and we strongly believe this is true, is A, the Canadian Copyright Act very explicitly says that you cannot copyright a building. Any picture of any public building taken from a publicly accessible area is the copyright of the person who takes the photograph. And we got that photograph off of a site where people license their photographs. So we played by the rules correctly according to the Canadian law. And so they had nothing to stand on here. And but it was pointed out this wasn't a copyright claim, this was a trademark claim. And the response to that is you only make trademark claims if you're trying to prevent damage to your trademark or confusion. Mm-hmm. And so, since the CN Tower doesn't produce fantasy novels with strong female protagonists, and since this clearly was not a guidebook, nobody was going to think this was a guidebook of the CN Tower, that think it's a festival of goblins and trolls and not go.
We never know, right? When the lights go out in Toronto, we don't know what comes out.
Yeah. So the trademark argument doesn't apply either. So we put that in the letter. We sent it off to Canada Lands, and then we sent it off to David Nichol at the Toronto Star, who Cory also knew, to print in the Toronto Star, and and then spread that on social media. And I'm pretty sure, the Canada Lands people had a day at that point, which is fine because they gave me one.
You have the day that you deserve.
Yeah. In the end, they responded by, not agreeing with anything that we had said per se, but saying we're not going to take this any further.
Yeah.
So, so I think that counts as a win. I also think it was pointed out that sometimes Canada Lands does get a bit grabby about films that are filmed in Toronto if they take a picture of the skyline. So they might want to claim a license on that. And I was shocked that they went after me because I was like, I'm not the only one that has a picture of the CN Tower on the cover. A quick Google search turned up 5 other books,
Wow.
including the fantasy novel Above by Leah Bobbitt. And I asked, it's like, did they talk to you about this? No, they never touched me. Except that Leah Bobbitt was published by Scholastic Canada, whereas I'm published by this boutique publisher from Portland, Oregon. So I think they may have tried to go after me. This is speculation, but they may have tried to go after me because I thought I was such a small fish to fry that I'd roll over and that they could take that and go after bigger fish. So I'm rather glad that I didn't.
Well, your last name is Bow, right? So it's a
Yeah.
bow and arrow. You're coming with a fight.
Well, I mean, it was very important that my wife said, go for it, because if she was willing to take the risk, that made it a lot easier for me too.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes we have to, right? We have to defend ourselves.
Yeah.
We can't just lay down and wait for them to roll us over, right? We got to stand up for our rights too.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, we have some questions here about storytelling, and it's the next question is, how do you stay motivated to keep writing, James?
Well, one thing that I think does help is I have more than one project on the go. So I mean, this may not be possible if you have a deadline that you need to work on. That has to be a top priority. But if you have some flexibility, if you're focusing on one particular story and you run into a problem, you'll be like hitting a wall. The very act of hitting a wall makes the wall harder and more difficult to get over. But if you have more than one project, you can sort of step back from this and then work on something else. Work on that one, and while you're working on that one, the back of your mind will continue to work on the first story. You'll eventually, you will keep your momentum going creatively, while the back of your mind works on the issues that have stopped your other project, and I think that does help. So I've had more than one creative thing going at a time that I sometimes flip back and forth on. Doesn't even have to be story writing. Being a rail fan, a transit fan who loves streetcars and trains, I've been doing a lot of videos recently of Toronto's transit history, and that's been taking up a lot of my creative focus right now. Although while I am working on another book, sort of companion novels of the Sunrunners, but I think having more than one project allows you to keep momentum going, while it helps avoid writer's block.
Well, we have a question here for you: is how do you balance creativity with structure in storytelling?
Well, I'm not sure if it is a balance for me. I fly by the seat of my pants when it comes to writing, and I go back and I shore up things. So if I'm building a house, it's not exactly laying a foundation. I'm putting up frames this way and that way, and it's like, okay, now I need to go back here, take this part out, and actually make it. And so. I don't, and I think the cost is that it does take me longer to write my stories sometimes. I'm no Martha Wells, who's able to put out those Murderbot books so fast. Not even close, but I get there in the end because I find that's the way I find my story. I start and I sort of branch off and look for the most interesting answers and try and bring it all back together. So there's a lot of writing, but there's also a lot of rewriting, and the rewriting is where the structure comes in.
So, James, how many books do you have in total?
The fiction books, I think, The Unwritten Girl, Fathom 5, Young City, that's one series, Icarus Down, The Night Girl, Sunrunners, so 6 novels, the anthology Tales from the Silence, so 7 books of fiction so far. And the education nonfiction books for kids, which are, you have a month to write them. I've gotten over 70. So, but those are very quick things. But the novels can take years.
So you're a writer on a marathon. You're writing all the time, right?
If all goes well, I try to, yes. Yeah.
Well, James, I want to get into your tea because your tea was really interesting. You said the underground city, otherwise known as the Path Network. Let's talk about this Path Network, because I was in Toronto a couple of times this year and I don't even know what the heck the Path Network is.
Well, I mean, we talked about this a bit earlier. It's the longest or the largest underground shopping concourse in the world.
So there's shopping stores underground?
Yeah, I mean, it starts at Union Station. Actually, it starts at the lake, but it's centered around Union Station and the downtown Toronto subway stations, and that's how it started. I mean, Toronto has its subway stations, and there are these skyscrapers in downtown Toronto. And when the skyscrapers went up, most of them in the 60s and the 70s, they built underground connections to the subway. And if they weren't right next to the subway, they built underground connections to each other so that they could get their workers to the subway without bringing them outside during the winter or the hot summer. And each building did their own sort of network of underground tunnels with shops added. So they didn't quite meet up exactly. Like it's not exactly a grid. It's more of a labyrinth. And it just built up that way organically until the 80s, before the city sort of stepped in and said, let's try and get some organization into this so that we don't lose anybody, because we're afraid we might start doing it.
Well, the goblins and trolls are all coming out.
And they called it the Path Network. I'm not sure why. Some of the tourist material in the 80s was already referring to it as the underground city. But if you're in Toronto and you're at Union Station, it may be a little bit hard to find unless you know that you're looking for it. But you look for the underground stores that are on the same level as the mezzanine, the fare paid areas of the subway stations, and you just keep going, and you can walk underground through a fair chunk of downtown Toronto as a result. And it's connected with some of the bigger Toronto malls like the Eaton Centre. The Eaton Centre is at the top of this. So you can walk from the Eaton Centre to Union Station without ever going outside.
Wow.
And
I gotta go back to Toronto now to do some research and check it out.
And, I mean, Montreal, this happens a lot with winter cities. Montreal has the Souterrain, which if you come into its Gare Centrale, the main train station, it has a similar sort of shopping tunnels which connect the train station to the metro. And you see this also in Minneapolis and in Calgary and Alberta, except in their case, they don't go underground. They build pedestrian bridges at the second or third stories of these buildings and turn those second or third stories into shopping concourses. So the network is an above ground network. But again, it's to keep people out of the cold. So these things exist in these northern cities and or winter cities, and Toronto has the largest.
So James, when you talk about the Path Network, have you put that into any of your books?
Well, I mean, The Night Girl was heavily inspired by that. Perpetua works in an office in sub-basement 3B. So deep underground. And so she works also from being the night girl. She's working from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. at this place. So she gets to see the Path Network when it's virtually deserted. And so, I took heavy inspiration from visiting the Path Network on a weekend when it's open, but people aren't really using it to commute. and it can't. And there is some eeriness. It's a very liminal space, I think it would be called now, in that this thing is built to have, carry a lot of people, but isn't now, and that makes it kind of creepy. And so, yeah, and it ties into a lot of other themes in the story about things, the hidden sides of our cities, the things that we don't see, not just places, but people. I mean, when you go into the legends of goblins and trolls, you very quickly come up to the legend of trolls sleep under bridges, and who else sleeps under bridges? The homeless. And so then the goblins and trolls are struggling to make a living in the human economy. So there's that connection as well. And so the story very quickly takes on that tone in terms of people striving to find their identity and express their identity in a world that is not built for them. How do they function in an economy that is not theirs and is not open to them? And very quickly that unearths a lot of deeper themes.
Well, what I found out about the night owl was
You mean the night girl?
the night girl. Where do I get the owl? Do you have a book on the owl?
The night owl is a common term, but yeah, night girl was a title came pretty quick too. It was like,
I don't know where my mind was when I wrote that word, but that book is about tolerance, acceptance, and discovering the wonders that just may be in plain sight. Is that based on like life in general? Like a lot of things are happening right in plain sight of us, right? So does that help with your storytelling, James?
I think so. I mean, I think that the story is as relevant in 2025, 2026 as it was when it came out in 2019. A lot of us are living on the edges of things. We are kept out of the economy and the society that isn't built for us, and it's alienating. The idea of there being people that want to live their life and be who they are, but are afraid of showing themselves and exposing themselves to the wider society. That's something a lot of us have to deal with in our day-to-day lives, and so that's when I explored the world that the goblins and the trolls were living under. When I was asking that question, what was it like to live like this? That's what I ran into very quickly, and that made the book a lot deeper. I mean, I was originally writing it like an episode of The Office with office humor. It was originally I've been told it feels very YA, but I had to up the character's age to 21 because I was finding the teens, while they liked certain parts of the story, were getting pretty bored of the office humor. Whereas 20-somethings who were in the job market were really enjoying it. Yeah, I mean, I tried keeping the tone light and just tried to, trying with the fish out of water theme of Perpetua, encountering the weirdness of like working for goblin clients. And just, if you stick with that and ask yourselves, why would they be having to do this in order to try and make money? Then the story suddenly gets darker. And I do find I like that in a story where it's both funny, but there is also a darker edge to it. Doctor Who goes there plenty of times, and that just appealed to me.
So, James, you talk about streetcars and trains. Are you going to be writing a book about streetcars and trains in the future?
Well, I mean, Toronto is a strong character in The Night Girl. Perpetua rides the streetcar, the subway quite a lot. In terms of setting a story in the street in a train, I mean that was the Sunrunners, and which was written after the Night Girl. It was that those are train cities that are rolling across the surface of Mercury, staying out of the sun. So, yeah, I get my my joy. I get my interests in however I can.
So do you have anything in the works coming that we should know about?
Well, I'm currently working on The Cloud Riders, which is a companion novel to The Sunrunners. This one is set on the planets Venus and Mercury. And like The Sunrunners, this takes place after the Earth has collapsed from environmental catastrophe, leaving the colonies of the inner solar system on their own in various states of self-sufficiency. And so Venus and Mars have this, it's very hard to travel between them, but they do have this sort of a trading relationship, and but they also have to deal with the fact that the Earth, this big colonial reality on their lives, no longer is there anymore. So we have a character in there, Sam Decker. She's a police and rescue officer cadet. And through various reasons, we see her on Venus with a fugitive who's run from Mars, and she goes with him to Mars. So it's like interplanetary country mouse, city mouse. We see each society through the eyes of this young woman. So that's science fiction, and that's more YA. I also have a story called The Curator of Forgotten Things, which will be more adult, so it'll be more like The Night Girl, but it's also science fiction. It's set in the near future where all the jobs have gone away due to automation and AI, but we've handled this well in that everybody is now paid a minimum income that covers food, and shelter, and all the university courses are free. So there are things for people to do. So people are being paid to live, and so things are, that's we've done it right. Except that she finds that she's a receptionist in this warehouse where everybody else has been laid off but her. So now she's a secretary. She's a admin assistant to an empty building. And so what does she do with her life, and interacting with these AIs that are working around her, and various other things happen. And it's sort of an exploration of identity. What happens to your identity when the jobs go away? Because when we ask people who they are, when I ask you, who are you? You'll give me your name, you give me where you're from, and you give me, what do you do? What happens if what do you do goes away? And so that's those are my next two projects.
Awesome. Well, I got some lightning bolt questions for you, and then I'm going to get your final message and all that good stuff where people can get books and all that good stuff. But one answer questions for these questions that I'm going to ask you. One word that describes your imagination, James.
Scrambled, maybe.
Scrabble board.
I go off on tangents quite often, but then I find something interesting and maybe I bring it back. So it's kind of like the way a tree grows. It branches and then we suck in the leaves.
Trains or writing, which comes first for you?
Well, I mean, you can write on a train. In terms of who I am, I'm a writer. I'm not a train rider, but I love to ride trains. So
writing comes first.
Yes.
Favorite genre to read?
Oh, I mean, I've always loved science fiction and fantasy. I guess I tend to be in the middle of that. I don't really go for hard science fiction, or very otherworldly fantasy, but I like seeing average people. I like I like seeing average people deal with interesting, fantastic things, like the Murderbot sequence of books is really good. Of this, the robot of this security robot that is controlled by its governor module, so that it doesn't go rogue and shoot things, but it disables its governor module so it can do whatever it wants. And what does it want? Well, it wants to watch videos. Watch videos, read book, consume media. It doesn't want to like blow things up, so it does a half-aid part of its job, keeps on doing its job, badly doing its job, until his secret comes out, and then what happens next is the basis of the whole series. And it's a great book series, and the Apple TV adaptation was really quite good too, I thought.
Well, we don't want the secrets coming out, do we?
Absolutely not. But no, it was a fun series.
You just never know, right?
Yeah.
The next one, Toronto or World Beyond? What inspires you more, James?
Toronto inspires me heavily. I mean, it's where most of my experience is. I've not traveled nearly as much as many other people, but it's where I've grew up, and it's where I gained a lot of my experience. And the city is, a bit different than what other people would experience. I didn't need to get a driver's license until I was 23 because I didn't need one. I took transit all the way around the city, and because I could, and that, I was not locked out of anything like you can be in the suburbs. The reason why people have asked me why I write about transit so much and create videos about it. It's like we all remember our first car, because our first car represents freedom to escape the home, get away from the parents. Except my first car was the Toronto streetcar and the Toronto subway, because I was perfectly able to do that and get away from my parents and explore the city, and that stays with me.
And if your life were a story title, what would it be?
That's hard. I don't think I could think of anything. Story titles come to me in a flash, but they're not necessarily the first thing that comes when I'm writing a story. So I don't think I can answer that question, but I can say there was a revelation when it came to a particular title that I was working with. The very first book I was working on to publish, which is The Unwritten Girl, was originally entitled Rosemary and Thyme. And it came about because I was thinking about this, book that was sort of inspired by A Wrinkle in Time, and I had this character, this young woman. She was dealing with this weird science fiction fantasy stuff, and so I have this relationship, I have this setting, and I just need to know her name, and what is her name, and I was at the office, and we're going to lunch, and I was like, my wife and her boss were just talking in front of me, and I was like behind them, going, the wheels turning. And
I need a name.
and they happened to sit down at the table, and they were going over the menu, and it's like, oh, Passion Fruit and Thyme. That's one of the, that would be a great romance novel. And I just went, her name's Rosemary. Which, that happens way too often as a writer, but
I got it. I know it.
And of course, from that, I had the title Rosemary and Thyme. And then when I finally get it published, I get the publishing contract. The publisher says, we can't use that because this is the story that you've written, where Rosemary has to go into the land of fiction and face her fears and the books that she has read as a child to save her older brother. Doesn't feature time travel. So Rosemary and Thyme doesn't work. Can you think of something else? It took me a while until we finally came up with The Unwritten Girl. So there's a long process in that. So I found good titles. I'm pleased with the titles that I've come up with, but they're not the first things that pop into mind.
Well, I think your story would be flying by the seat of your pants.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
But James, if anybody wanted to grab any of your books, where could they get them? And if anybody wanted to have you as a guest on a podcast or that, where could they reach you?
Well, I'm available at better bookstores everywhere. If you were to sort of ask the manager to order these books, we're also available on Amazon. Excuse me. And and you're also able to get in touch with me and see what my books are, and perhaps find ways to order my books at my personal website, which is B-O-W, James Bow, all one word, .ca. So go to bojamesbow.ca. You'll see my latest sort of blog writing and links to all the books that I've written, and we can go from there.
Well, thank you so much. And James, what's your final message for the listeners tonight?
Well, I would say keep writing, because it's a total blessing to be able to keep the creative juices flowing, and the best way to do that is to just do what makes you what appeals to you, what makes you feel good. So if you want to write, the best advice we can give you is write.
Well, thank you so much, James. It was a pleasure having you back. I always love having return guests because the ice is already broken. So we go down some real rabbit holes and have some fun.
Yeah.
And we get rosemary.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank all the listeners out there tonight for joining in and bringing your comments and questions and joining the live feed. I could not do this without all of you guys. Thank you to all the platforms that Miss Liz streams to as well for all your support and encouragement. I'm just going to do a wrap up of what tonight's tea time is, and I will see everybody next week, and we'll do this all over again. What a creative and inspiring conversation. James, welcome back, and thank you for continuing to share your worlds, your imagination, and your perspectives with us. Your work reminds us that storytelling is not just about escape, it's about understanding, exploring, and connecting it in ways we may not always expect. Tonight, we were reminded that stories have the power to transport us, but also to ground us, to help us see our own worlds differently through the lens of imagination. Your journey shows us that curiosity is a powerful guide, whether we're exploring fictional worlds or the real ones around us. Here is something to carry with you after this tea time. Where might your story take you if you allow yourself to explore without knowing the ending? Because sometimes the best journeys are the ones we don't plan. They are the ones we choose to follow. Until our next cup shared, keep exploring, keep imagining, and keep allowing your stories to unfold. And I'll see everybody next week, and we'll do this all over again.
Excellent.